Hello, and welcome to SciShow Talk Show, the day where we talk to interesting people about interesting things. Today we're talking to Andrea and Don Stierle, research scientists at the University of Montana, who've done a lot of amazing things in your long career as scientists. So you guys are married, but you've also been doing research together for 30 plus years.
Absolutely.
And I've been looking at the Berkeley Pit for interesting organisms that may live there that may be useful to humans.
Absolutely.
So talk a little bit about what each of you do, and so you've taught, but you no longer teach, just pure research now?
Correct. We're strictly research professors at UM.
Okay.
So I'm more of the biology end of things. So whether we're looking at microbes in the Berkeley Pit or microbes in the bark of a yew tree, the first step, of course, is to isolate these microorganisms. And we pick fungi and sometimes bacteria because they're great chemists. They do beautiful chemistry, and they do chemistry with a reason. They live in an ecosystem that they have to interact with. So they may be fighting off other fungi or bacteria, so they have to make antibiotics like penicillin. They may also have to react to low pH, acidic conditions, or high metals, and so they produce small molecules to defend themselves. We canny humans can isolate those chemicals, and we can use them for our own purposes. So I isolate these guys, establish them in pure culture, grow them in fermentation broths.
How do you take one, so you got a bucket of Berkeley Pit water.
Streak and streak and streak.
Just like this one, take that out and put it here, take that out and put it here.
And it just,
and eventually,
you slowly come up with pure cultures.
And you can tell the difference by looking at.
Absolutely, their morphology is different. And you can grow them in different broths. So whether you feed them sucrose, or glucose or lactose, you change their chemistry. So you could literally lock us in a lab for 100 years with one microbe, and we could just keep, please don't, but we could keep coming up with new chemicals, and it's amazing. Once we establish them in pure culture, then the chemistry side begins. And we do the extraction. Don and I both do the chemistry, but I'll let him talk about what we do with those extracts.
Sure. If you take any organism, if it's a plant, an animal, whatever, and you put it in a whirring blender and grind it up, you can extract it with different solvents and get out different kinds of chemicals. And if you do that, you get out virtually hundreds of chemicals.
Sure.
And
I always say, people say, look at all the ingredients on my my candy bar, and I'm like, well, look at all the ingredients in a tomato, but it just says tomato on a tomato.
Exactly. So then the game becomes finding something useful in that mix of compounds and then isolating the compound that's responsible for that. And so that's what we do. We separate these compounds out, we isolate the active one, and we have a series of bioassays that we use. And then we try to determine what the structure of the compound is. So we spend a lot of time looking at, you get something out of a pit or a compound out of there that has some kind of activity. You have to know what the structure is before you can decide how it fits into the biological activity.
Right, how it might be functioning, but also how you might synthesize it. Because if you have to suck it out of a fungi every time you're doing it, that's not super practical for how we make things these days.
In the long run, if you finally ended up with something that was what we call drug-worthy or druggable, you would need to do it. But this part of it is really fun. If you like puzzles, if you like just sleuthing, it's Indiana Jones in a petri dish. So it's really, but Don mentioned testing. So here you have 1,000 compounds in a flask. We don't want to isolate all of them because some of them might be something that's not very active or interesting.
Well, I mean, most of it's just going to be like metabolism stuff and
just
the
general, exactly. A little DNA, a little sugar. So when he mentioned bioassay, the most important thing that drives the research is selecting the test that directs your discovery. So when we started looking at the Berkeley Pit, so this is not a very compatible ecosystem. So you're looking at low pH, pH 2.5.
Super acidic.
Kind of like a Mountain Dew, so nasty.
I mean, they might be a sponsor someday.
They could, that's true. Just like lemon juice. So think of lemon juice, orange juice.
Right.
But they're also very high in what are called reactive metals, so things like copper and iron. And so these are generating...
Which is super antibacterial. Like, Bacteria hate metals like
If
that.
you were looking at copper sulfate, that's actually what they treat things with to kill fungi.
But they also kill us.
Also bad for people. Sure.
And bad for fish, so you'll never find fish in the Berkeley Pit.
No, and the birds land on it and don't ever take off again.
And very few of them do successfully. But what is it about those systems that are going to drive the kind of chemistry these fungi elaborate? And so it turns out some of these sort of what we'd call toxic conditions in the pit mimic toxic conditions in mammalian systems. So if you think about inflammation, that's an acidic phenomenon. If you think about reactive oxygen species are produced a lot in metabolism, and they can lead to things like DNA mutation and damage. And so these fungi have been working their entire tiny lives producing small molecules that can block enzymes that get excited by these conditions. Their enzymes are analogous to some of our enzymes. So we hypothesized, to use the scientific jargon, the stuff you put in the grant, that if a fungus can produce compounds that can mitigate the effects of acid or reactive oxygen species, maybe we could fish those out and they could actually work as anti-inflammatories, anti-cancer agents. And so this is exactly what we're finding. We're finding compounds that block cancer metastasis. We're finding compounds that really mitigate inflammation. And just recently, we did something we'd never done before. We've never found an antibiotic in these organisms. Their concentration in the pit is so low. You know, this is not like a toxic
competition
soup.
Here, yeah.
Exactly. So we grew two together to see how it would change their chemistry. We took the two most
fungi?
boring fungi we had. Nothing in them was interesting. We put those puppies together.
How do you know? How do you know what makes it so boring?
Well,
what would be
Don
interesting?
looked at the
We had
chemistry.
already looked at them, purified, the chemistry of them.
Don identified, this is already known, this is already known.
Okay.
These aren't very active. So we were going to just stick them back in storage, and we thought, well, these two might be interesting fungi, and there's a great term for this. We wanted to see if we could turn on cryptic biosynthesis.
Oh, yeah.
So all those genes inside those fungi, they figure maybe 5% are actually being expressed. And so all of a sudden we started producing, so Don looked at the NMR, so we do a lot of nuclear magnetic resonance and mass spectrometry, and Don looked at the NMR and it was completely different than either fungus.
Weird.
So then we started testing, and it turned out
I'm going to go back to
bacteria.
Sorry, I interrupted.
that's okay.
But I was
No
I'll let you get back to that. But first, how are you doing NMR with so many compounds?
Well, like I said, the first thing you're going to do is purify the compound that is responsible for the activity that you're looking for.
Right. Okay.
And once you purify them, then you do NMRs on those. So
because you need some pretty specific, like you're not just going to throw a soup into the NMR.
Well, we look at crude extracts too,
First.
but they give us some information about what's the biggest components that's in that particular extract.
And so you can tell sort of a difference between one organism. Like if I just blend one fungi and then another fungi, I can tell the difference in an NMR between those two things?
You could tell a difference in the chemistry of it.
Just that it's different. You couldn't necessarily tell like what compounds they are, but there's sort of a fingerprint there.
Yeah, there is a fingerprint.
And some of them you get to know, so you can actually look at a crude NMR and this looks like asperfuran, this looks like penicillic acid. But that's because we look at these a lot. These are our friends. We spend a lot of time with them. You've got nerds on your couch.
Oh yeah, no, that's what the couch is for.
I felt the vibe. It felt very safe here.
So you put these two fungi together. They were completely different. What did you find? Were they now good at something new?
Don came in with this beautiful new structure, and we looked at the structure, and I said, this reminds me of compounds like erythromycin, which is a cyclic, what's called a macrolide. And these are very potent antibiotics against gram-positive bacteria. except things like erythromycin have a lot of sugars that are actually responsible for the activity. Well, our compound is sugar-free, so besides being
No
less
calories.
filling,
Great.
it's not going to harm your teeth. It didn't necessarily look like it could be antibiotic. So we have a wonderful colleague at University of Montana, Nigel Priestley, who's in chemistry, and he works at the discovery of antibiotics. And he very graciously had his technician, Jeremy, test our compounds, and it was incredible. We were active only against gram-positives. Now, you really want a gram-negative antibiotic, but we got a gram-positive one, so different kinds of bacteria. But what was really exciting, we were very active against Staphylococcus aureus. Now, Staph aureus causes a lot of infections, soft tissue damage, and other injuries, and they retested because they have a suite of what are called methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, what we call MRSAs.
Yeah.
But we also use MRSA more generically to mean a drug-resistant Staph aureus. So they have a number of multi-drug resistant that they got from a research lab back east. And when they tested our compound against them, we are actually more active against drug-resistant staph than we are against a more generic variety. And when they tested again, we're actually as active as vancomycin, ciprofloxacin, and 32 times more active than erythromycin, because a lot of these compounds have become resistant.
Yeah, of course.
And the actual staph that are now resistant to erythromycin, we're still killing. And we've tested and retested, and so far these microbes have not developed resistance to our antibiotic.
That's very
And
cool.
so
That
we
sounds
are
pretty druggable.
really excited.
Yeah,
it does
hopefully
sound,
so.
we're in the process of finding out the drugability. In the funding agencies, they call this the Valley of Death, which is such a lovely term. It means you can get funded for discovery.
Is that the funding agencies
It is
call it that? I would
actually-
think maybe the scientists would call it that.
Well,
No, it's the funding agencies are like, welcome to the Valley of Death. Send us your
exactly.
grant proposal.
Send us your. That's what it feels like too. After the third time you've been turned down for, really, guys, this is an exciting compound, and it's no, you haven't made it exciting enough yet.
Yeah.
So of course, you're a long way from a drug,
Yeah.
because we've only done one very. Most of our testing is in vitro, so we're looking at, microbes in a petri dish.
Yeah.
We have a colleague at University of Wisconsin in Madison. They've been looking at mode of action studies for us. And what's really exciting is this thing doesn't seem to work in the way other antibiotics work. The mode of action, or really mechanism of action, is what we're looking at this point, doesn't seem to fit known patterns. And that makes it more exciting. So we're in the process of writing the grants, forming the collaborations, because it really does take a village
you're
to
not
get a
going to do this all on
compound.
your own,
And we don't have those skill sets. So we're finding
Do you have the
wonderful
structure
people.
of this?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. We're not telling you, but we know.
Just give them a phone.
Actually, we did publish. We patented it through UM.
Great.
And then we published this part of it last spring.
Cool.
And we made it onto a site. One of our students told us, "You're in Reddit." And I had no idea what that meant.
Congrats
but he
on
said,
being in Reddit.
You have 100,000 points or something. I did not even know what that meant, but he said, it's cool.
It's good. It's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think so. We've done Daily Show, Radiolab, and Reddit.
Oh, good. And you've taken a step down to SciShow Talk Show.
No, this is the pinnacle. This is
Yeah, this is
exciting. Yes.
Well, we could talk forever about this. And you found these microbes all over the place in weird spots. I mean, are you particularly excited by the pit just because there are weird things there? It's like you end up with a stranger group of organisms.
Yes, and well, we both started as natural products chemists looking at marine organisms, the downside of that was you'd had to go to Bermuda, you'd have to go to
was
the
tough
Bahamas
duty.
to collect all of your samples.
So in this way, you get to stay in Butte.
Yeah, there you go. Well, we ran out of money.
Okay.
And, the pit was there. We found out that there were things growing in there, and we decided to look at them.
Nice.
And,
We had
it really was
a wonderful colleague who is a chemist who has since passed away, who actually in summer of 1995 brought us a stick coated with green slime that was in the pit. And that was the
what
first
is this
time.
thing that is alive?
Exactly.
Something
And
was
so,
growing in it, in the water.
and the Bureau of Mines gave us a cup of water, and we started finding fungi. And what was really special about 1995, that was the first November that snow geese landed in the pit during a storm, and 342 snow geese died. And it was awful, and some of the birds, quite a few of them, were not able to take off.
Yeah.
But many did try to lift off. And birds do something when they try to fly, and that is they poop to make themselves more
Weigh a little
aerodynamic.
less, yeah.
So they evacuated into the pit. That next June, we were able to get another sample, and there was a brand new organism that had not been there the summer of '95. And it was this sort of brownish, greenish yeast. And when we started growing, now again, this is kind of a little bit outside of what we usually do, but since we were at Tech, we had access to a lot of atomic absorption and inductively coupled plasma, these great instruments that measure metal concentrations. So we were finding that this yeast could actually pull metals out of water. Any yeast, horse shit, grass, if you put it in metal, it will sorb a certain amount of positively charged metal.
Okay.
Let's say 10%. This yeast was
10% of
sucking
like its weight.
10% of the metal concentration that's in there. And what this was doing was, as we grew it in pit water, that we added a little sugar to help it grow, it was sorbing up to 90% of iron, cadmium, lead.
Why aren't we just punching a bunch of sugar into the pit?
We can't get funding for this.
How much? How much sugar do you need?
We're not environmental engineers. And it's not something you could do in situ. You know, you would use it as a treatment facility. So we keep, since
so you couldn't
19...
just throw sugar in the pit and it would work?
Well, you never know. It's never been done.
I mean, I know where to get sugar.
Molasses. It'd be interesting to see. And what's interesting...
During the summer when it's warm, can hold a little more sugar.
Yeah. And last fall, they had anywhere from 3,000 to 10,000 geese. And we didn't get access to the pit to sample again, but that tragic bolus of matter probably changed the ecology of the pit.
Tragic bolus of matter.
Oh, God. Oh, Lord.
Is that what you mean by just a bunch of dead geese?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it turns out that after we start looking at organisms, we send them off to get them ID'd. And the ID on this one, the only place it had been reported before is from the rectal swab of a goose.
So it's, so we know where it came from.
We know where it came from, and that's the only
We're pretty
place.
sure.
Yeah. I mean,
it's in our lab now.
Weird that there's like a really good metal absorber in goose guts. But I don't know, they eat a lot of weird stuff.
Well, the strange thing is we would tell not just people who play at microbiology, and we would tell them we found a yeast in the Berkeley Pit, and they, the pH is 2.5. No, you didn't. Well,
you haven't been around.
Lab.
You haven't been around enough goose butts.
Exactly.
We could talk all day, but we can't, because I have to be kind to these people who have to edit the video later. And before we end, I want you guys to meet an animal. It's not going to be a goose, because she doesn't have any geese.
Oh, but it is alive, right?
It is alive, a living animal. It's not a tragic bolus of anything.
Can we take a rectal swab of this animal?
Yeah, I mean...
I didn't bring a swab.
I didn't bring a swab.
I wasn't prepared.
This is Blueberry. She's a blue-tongued skink.
She is gorgeous.
Skink. So northern blue-tongued skink from northern regions of Australia. And in Australia, they call them just blue tongues or blue-tongued lizards. Yeah.
So they're like common enough that they're like, oh, there's a blue tongue in the yard.
Exactly.
That was my
No.
worst ever.
Exactly. Like that.
That's really good. Now, everything I know about Australian animals is they are all the most
Terrifying.
deadly.
Right.
The most deadly of all variety.
Not blueberry.
But
Not blueberry,
is
but
not.
I mean, she has the perfect defense because everything is venomous or poisonous there, right? They are the deadly. Every animal's there is just terrifying. Yeah. But she has this really cool thing. Let's see if she'll show it up. There she goes. Yeah, and what she's named after too. So her blue
is
tongue,
beautiful.
and that is a warning color that says, I'm poisonous or venomous. Something bad's gonna happen to you if you eat me or come close to me.
Will anything bad happen to me?
Not really. I mean, she has some teeth in there. She could bite you, but that's not really what their defense is going to be. So they're gonna open their mouth. I mean, she sticks her tongue out to smell, and but when she is in her defensive posture, she'll open her mouth large and then wide, and then stick her tongue out, and then she'll raise her tongue up, and then she'll wiggle it back and forth.
Sounds like Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
And then she's gonna be like, seriously, if you eat me, something bad's gonna happen. And they're like, well, either the predator believes her or doesn't believe her. And if it believes her, good, she lives another day. But if they don't believe her, then she's got to get out of there really fast. And she's not very fast.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, I mean, she looks like just a sausage. Like she looks like if I'm in Australia and I'm blueberry, I feel very vulnerable because like that just looks like a big tube of meat to me.
I mean, yeah, sure, yeah.
Like look at this big, delicious looking fatty tail.
Everything looks delicious about her. Yeah. So, she will turn around and she'll try and escape, which then leaves her tail super vulnerable, and they'll grab her tail, which she can drop. She can let go of her
okay.
tail.
I see. So this is my defense: is that I have a big fat
Backup plan.
sausage.
Yeah.
Backup plan.
Yeah.
Yep.
What does she eat?
But yeah, so she's going. She loves snails, and but she'll also eat beetles and worms and eggs, baby birds that are nesting on the ground or small rodents. And then she'll also eat vegetation too. So she does eat berries and leaves and
Can I pet her?
You can pet her on her back. Don't touch her face.
I had no intention of touching her face. I already. Now,
yeah.
can she whip around at the speed of light?
Nope. She is very slow.
Oh, she
So she won't hurt you at all.
Are they burrowers?
They are, and that's one of the
she
things
is
that
beautiful.
skinks, they're one of the largest groups of lizards, of true lizards, but they all tend to have short legs, not very long, pronounced necks, and most of them are burrowers. The ones that have longer legs, they're going to be a little bit more arboreal, but these guys like to burrow a lot, and they don't really dig their own burrow because
Right. How would I do that?
yeah. So they borrow burrows, and they have this really cool thing. If they go down into a burrow and it is inhabited by a venomous snake, they could she's like a little tube that they could easily eat her if they're large enough. So she has these really cool back legs where her feet can actually turn 180 degrees around. So they're like wrists back here.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So she can just tip, and so then she can reverse out of there as fast as she can.
Which isn't very fast.
It's not super fast, but it's faster than if she was trying to backtrack. And she has a really heavy body, so turning her feet around, getting the grip to turn around.
I would not want to be a Bluetongue in Australia. I mean, I just feel like this.
She's a
Look at
sitting
these
duck.
dumb little legs.
Yes, but that's why she has her tongue to be like, don't eat me.
I'm scary.
And her tail, and she can regenerate her tail. It takes quite a while to do, like a year. And they have to find food because their tail is actually their backup, their like refrigerator, stores fat in their tail. So they can, if they don't eat for a couple weeks, they're actually okay. Did she just lick her lips?
Yes.
Yeah, she did.
She really is. I've always
big,
loved
isn't she?
lizards. She is gorgeous.
Would you like to hold her?
Not particular.
Would you like to hold her?
I bet.
Sure.
If you want, you can cradle her like a baby like that. That's the easiest.
Okay.
I don't want my cat to think
put her
I've
on your
been
arms.
unfaithful.
Just like, there you go.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's the
That's
easiest
cool.
way.
Okay, now she's doing a lot of defensive posturing.
She is not doing any defensive posturing.
What are these things right here?
Those are her ears. So those are her external ear holes, and she actually has muscles right here that she can flex and close up her ear hole so when she is burrowing, she doesn't get any dirt in her ears.
God, that is cool.
Yeah.
Isn't she beautiful?
Yeah.
You want to feel it?
I have been feeling it.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Would you like to hold her? You can hold her too.
That. Oh,
There she goes.
I think she might eat you.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm trying to walk, but my arms are real dumb.
She blends.
So tiny.
She blends with you nicely.
Yeah, we match.
Camouflage. Yeah. Yeah. So in the wild they would have maybe not so dumb looking feet.
Oh yeah,
She's missing her toes. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
What happened to her?
The previous owner, so we rescue our animals, and the previous owner did not give her the right substrate and humidity level combination, and so they shed, like all reptiles do, and the shed on the toes also will come off, the skin on the toes will come off, but if they aren't humid enough and they don't rub it against stuff, it'll stick on there, and then the next layer will grow under that and also get stuck, and just over and over and over, and it'll cause constriction, and the toes will die and fall off. Wow. And so she's lost all her toes. She has a half a toe there.
Hank, don't you feel a little
I
bad now
feel
making
terrible.
fun of her tiny toes?
I should have learned by now.
Her legs are the same, are her size, but her little feet.
Oh, there she goes, walking backwards, doing the backwards
Go,
walk.
Go.
That's
She's
a
trying.
weird way for her feet to
fantastic.
work. That was weird.
Now, we had skinks as kids.
Okay, yeah,
And
well,
they were...
There's a lot. There's over 1,500 different species of skinks, and she is the largest of the Bluetongues, but she's not the largest skink in the world. The prehensile tail skink is, and they're like an inch or two longer than her.
Okay.
So they're not massively bigger, but
Blueberry, you are beautiful.
Yeah.
That color is gorgeous.
It's a great tongue too.
oh, I love her tongue. Yeah. So guess what her favorite food is?
Is that blueberries?
It's blueberries. Wow.
So her tongue really isn't blue.
Yeah.
She just eats blueberries.
That's what it is.
She eats suckers all the time.
Yeah.
I love it.
She's really comfy right there. I'm
Good.
just gonna hang out.
Well, she is a lovely girl.
Sure you don't hold her?
Okay.
So if you cross your arms, I'll just lay her right on your arms.
Peaches will be pissed because she's...
Oh no.
Don't you bite me, darling.
She will not bite you. So she would only bite.
She feels good.
Isn't she cool? It's like cool, actually
It's like a
cool.
massage.
Yeah, I give you that forearm
like,
massage
"Oh,
there.
yeah."
That is lovely. Hey, watch what you're massaging there.
Oh, good.
And she's
Stinky.
smelling you a lot. She's trying to walk.
She is, and I've got her sort of in a...
Walk.
It's hard to be.
I know. A lot of them won't even use their back legs. They get a little bit lazy and they'll just drag their body with their front legs.
I mean, how does this animal catch
fascinating.
prey in the wild? Are they just like,
Beetles are
They
slower
run
than
after
she
it.
is.
They do. Yeah, exactly.
We're
Snails.
talking
Their
snails
favorite
here.
food is snails and leaves.
all right, snails and leaves. I can imagine Blueberry catching a snail or a leaf.
But only if the wind
But
isn't
it's so
blowing.
funny.
Yeah, right?
So it's so funny when we feed her, we'll feed her like a mealworm or something. And it's a beetle larva, and it's just like it's moving so slow, and she'll go over and miss it. And then she misses it again. And then she'll get it in her mouth and she'll shake it. You know how like dogs playing will like shake a toy like that? She'll shake it like this.
That's
Oh, wow.
It's just like a vestigial shake. Like my ancestors shook prey, and so I also
They did,
shake prey.
Do you develop a relationship with any of these animals?
Depends on what kind of animal it is, but yes. And sometimes, it's a reciprocal relationship, and sometimes it's more like I know what this animal likes, and they'll do better if I just give that to them. And it's not like Blueberry knows me, and she's as long as you hold her appropriately, she's content.
She doesn't run to the door when you come in. And
She doesn't.
running I use that term loosely.
Yeah,
not like particularly me as an indivial, but
just
if she
whoever's
sees us.
giving food.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she does recognize humans as a food source, not like to eat us, but like we're gonna bring.
Let's rephrase that.
But there are some animals that are really social that have bonded with me specifically, and so that's an important part of their social structure for their needs and their happiness too.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, We got to wrap up.
I know. We have to
We
end
could talk about
sometime.
blueberry forever.
Well, blueberry is gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I'm glad she wasn't a giant spider. Because
Yeah.
I love and respect spiders. But if one crawls
don't
on me,
need
I
one.
get a little twitchy.
We do have a tarantula
I
named
bet
Fluffy.
you do. Oh, Fluffy.
She's adorable.
I bet she is. I
met
bet she
Fluffy.
is
Fluffy's great.
lovely.
He's good.
Thanks, Blueberry. Thanks, Jessi.
Thank you.
Jessi's at youtube.com/Animal Wonders Montana, where you can find out all of the things.
Fantastic.
All of the things
Yeah. Well,
about
all the-
animals.
and the work that you do. It's just, it's really great.
It was fun to hear about it
Yeah,
and learn
yeah,
about
really.
it.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for holding my lizard.
Oh, it was our
Fascinated
pleasure.
about it.
And thank you guys for watching. You can always find us at youtube.com/SciShow. This was a fun one.